Let's talk supply chain. So, welcome to the show, Amy.
Thanks, Sarah. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here because there's a lot I want to ask you. I'm really enjoying the conversations I'm having at the moment around e-commerce, customer experience, and it's just exciting to see the future of retail evolving and being defined right in front of our eyes. And I think it's organizations like yours that are helping to drive this effective, seamless sort of future for us all. So I want to know how you're doing it, and I want to give our audience a glimpse into how you're doing it as well. So let's set the scene and talk about the landscape of e commerce and the growing importance of omni channel strategies. I mean, the industry really is evolving so rapidly. So, talk us through how things have changed over the last few years and maybe paint us a picture of where we are right now.
Yeah, great question. So as we think about e-commerce and delivery, COVID really shaped or accelerated the business in ways that I don't think any marketing capabilities, and no offense to any marketers out there, but the acceleration and the need for last mile delivery and delivery in totality and how we think about true retail operations and technology has really morphed over the last, 4 years. And a lot of that is going to be based off of how the customers expect to buy different products. So they're expecting to buy them on their mobile phones versus being, at their desktop where they might have done that prior to COVID. So just how customers are buying have really morphed. How their expectations and how retailers are meeting them with personalization is really key these days. And then making sure in that competitive landscape, once they have that foothold of that customer, they're keeping them. They're keeping those loyal customers coming back. They're building those bigger baskets. They're coming back into the stores in an omni-channel approach. Whether it's in store, it's pickup, or for delivery, they're really meeting those customers where they are. And really, I believe COVID set the foundation of those expectations, and they did that by way of technology. And so where we're going and where we'll continue to go, or from my beliefs, retailers are going to continue to meet the customer where they are based off of their buying habits and that ever evolving technology solution that they can provide them, and where they can meet them in a convenient atmosphere. Where am I going to buy? Where am I purchasing? How am I purchasing? And when am I purchasing? And really meeting them where they want to be.
Yeah, well, and I also think shipping times too. I was on a panel in February, and I think somebody said that nobody pushes the buy button, or a big percentage of consumers do not hit that buy button unless it says something like next day delivery or something like that.
That's right.
Crazy.
That's right. And I was speaking with one of our existing retailers, and it's everyone has this Amazon effect where the expectation is I'm going to get that in 2 days. And if a retailer can cut that down by next day, rather than a 2-day delivery, you're really creating that desire to have that product sooner than later. It's almost of that ticking time bomb that you see. If I place it today, I can get it tomorrow. And so really creating that need where, it's not just a 7-day delivery anymore. You're
Mhm.
expecting it tomorrow, or the next day.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned personalization too, right? A lot of retailers are looking at providing that custom option. And I think people want to see that in their delivery options as well. They want to be able to say, well, maybe I don't need it next day. Hopefully, they'll still press the buy button. Maybe I do only need it in 3 to 4 days. But when I do need it same day or next day, that option is available. And I know we're going to get into more of that. But with all of that in mind, what are some of the challenges that organizations are facing, and what are the opportunities to get ahead and achieve that competitive advantage?
Yeah, everyone's going to say cost, whether it's labor cost, whether it's technology cost, or whether it's, that outsourced DSP or delivery service provider cost. It comes at an expense of continuing to bring that customer back. So when I think about it, or we think about it at Delivery Solutions, it's going to be cost and control. How do they get out ahead of the costs that it takes to really solve the problem, that complex problem of how the customer is going to get it, and how do we put the control back in the customer, and even more so the retailer, to get that to the customer. And so those are two things that we're seeing a lot of: how can I get it to my customer quick but cost effectively, and how can I make sure that I'm controlling that message and that narrative so they feel as if they're a brand extension of, I'm purchasing it from Sephora.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of that is also packaging, I think. I think a
Yep.
lot of retailers sort of miss that opportunity to brand the packaging, which kind of extends into that customer experience, no matter who's delivering it, because when you get it, you're opening it and it's got all that branding on it. So where do you fit in? Like, who is Delivery Solutions? What do you do? How do you help your customers?
Yeah, so Delivery Solutions is a seamless omni-channel experience for everything post-purchase. So when you think
Okay.
I'm placing my order, how am I going to get that? Is it same day? Is it within 1 hour? Is it curbside? We really round everything out with our post-purchase communication and returns capability. So once you've placed that item in the cart, you've selected how you're going to pick up that item. Delivery Solutions helps retailers orchestrate leveraging our tooling, what is the most cost-effective way for the retailer, as well as putting the control back in their hands of how I'm going to control the message to know how and when that order will be delivered.
Well, and I think providing that consumer with some of those options as well. Like I've been seeing more and more options. You can get it delivered, and then there's lots of different windows for that. You
Exactly.
can pick it up maybe from a store, which also helps the retailers utilize some of the bricks and mortar space that they have currently that they've never kind of used in that way before.
Right.
But there's also, I think, ways to be able to deliver it to a facility where they can pick it up closer to their home. So, are you helping, with all of those options for the consumer?
You're exactly right. And the value too from a delivery solution standpoint is we're a single API integration. So
Mm,
we talked about cost and that tech stack and simplifying that tech stack, COVID kind of rushed everyone to say, I need to integrate here, there, and everywhere. And
yep.
so you're looking at your tech stack and you're saying, gosh, I have 9, 10 different integrations for everything post click or post placing that order. How do I simplify that? How do I simplify the maintenance and the cost to uphold all of those API integrations? But how do I also allow my customer to meet them from, a delivery speed, a curbside offering? And how do I make sure they know this order is coming from Total Wine, but by way of a delivery partner like a DoorDash or an Uber, really controlling that message and that cost.
That is a really good point that we don't talk a lot about. When you have too much technology at play, and
Right.
maybe they're stacked on top of each other, whatever that looks like for that particular retailer, it's a lot to manage. It's a
It is.
lot to manage from a vendor perspective. It's a lot to manage maybe when one goes down and maybe you don't even realize it because you're not watching it constantly. And it's a lot to manage from a cost perspective as well. I mean, that's a big deal.
That you're right. And I got to know delivery solutions, gosh, 5, 6 years ago when I was at a DSP. And, you know, at the time I wanted direct integrations. It made the most sense for my business at the time. And I can now admittedly say on the other side of it, I see why retailers will want one solution, one contact, one set of data points to manage all
Mhm.
of their orders. But then also understand getting customer feedback, how nice it is to have one location to manage all of that information and one API to make sure that is always up and consistent versus, we see retailers go from 9 different API integrations down to our one, and they're like, gosh, this is a breath of fresh air. It's one person to reach out to if something goes crazy.
Yeah, it's like such a relief. But the other good point that you made is around data. Who wants
Right.
to manage all of that good and bad data, anyways? We can
Exactly.
barely manage what we have right now.
Right, and making sure that there's one consistent notion of how you're measuring your KPIs. How
Mhm.
confusing is it to go to, one system to another, to an email, to a text message, to Slack and say, here, I'm going to put it on a dashboard. We can serve that up to you really seamlessly so that you can monitor all of your internal KPIs against what your, other partners are working on.
Well, and I want to take a step back for a second because you said you were on the other side.
I
So
guess
what
I,
what
yeah.
what were you doing previously and what made you want to come to this side and get so excited about it? Because I can feel your passion.
Yeah, so I was at Shipped, so pre and post target acquisition, and I led the rollout of their last mile delivery solution. And so, what excites me about technology and what excites me about supply chain is that when you think about the retail industry, we're leveraging technology to bring them up into essentially the new world, the
Mm.
21st century, and solving complex problems with technology. And so during my time at Shipt, it was really awesome to understand the technology, how the 1099 gig contractors work, what you can and can't do from like a legality standpoint. But we were seeing and working with a handful of grocery and non-grocery retailers how important that last mile was. And so, funny enough, when our now Delivery Solutions co-founders came to me at Shipt and said, "Hey, Amy, if you want to keep working with, these retailers, you're going to have to integrate with Delivery Solutions." And kicking and
That's a good
screaming,
sales pitch.
yeah.
If anybody's listening, that's a good sales pitch.
Yeah, kicking and screaming my way into that integration. On the other side of it, I saw how easy and quickly we could integrate partners, especially in 2020, with the help of Delivery Solutions. And so I took some time in the pet telehealth world, which is wild and crazy and completely different, and always had my pulse on supply chain and retail, because it's that puzzle that I love putting together to understand how it works. And so
Mm.
when the opportunity presented itself and I was able to see the product and how much the product had grown, it was really impressive, because we started as truly just orchestrating same day, and now we have 6 different products that retailers like Sephora, Total Wine, Abercrombie and Fitch are using to really enhance their customer experience.
Awesome. Now let's talk about that customer. We haven't touched on this yet, but I always like to get a sense of who your ideal client is. So, am I right in thinking that you only work with enterprise customers, or do you have an ideal customer maybe in a particular vertical?
Yeah, so traditionally we have been, roughly 35% grocery. We work with retailers of all shapes and sizes. So we do have a handful of large enterprise customers, as I mentioned, Sephora, Big Lots, Office Depot, to name a few. But we do also have kind of that mid-market grocery retailer,
Mhm.
meeting those retailers where they are, especially when you have a complex tech stack. And so really what we look at here is, number of orders that we can help you solve and simplify across the board, rather than number of location, what your e-com spend is. While that's important, we want to make sure we're providing the best strategy and solution for people across the board.
Amazing. So now you mentioned the term DSP earlier, and I was going to get you to let me know what that was, but I know we're going to talk about it now. So it actually stands for Delivery Service Provider. But I want to talk about the diversification aspect because I think it's a big topic right now. I think organizations are starting to appreciate some of the benefits, thanks in part to the pandemic, but there's still
Right.
a big question mark over how to make it work effectively. So, can you talk to us about why DSP diversification is so important and how you're helping customers to successfully manage those DSPs?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you think about, that simplified tech stack, and you think about what's important to retailers and what their goals are, it's going to be cost and coverage.
Mhm.
And when you have, hundreds of thousands of delivery partners across the board, not all or have the same value prop. And when
Right.
you think about cost and coverage, each are going to provide a different technology solution, as well as coverage, as well as what they will and won't do with their 1099 contracts or their W-2 employees. So when you think about making sure you have the right assortment, it's very important to diversify in order to make sure you're choosing the most cost effective, but also those that are hitting the right KPIs. What is your on-time percentage? What is your in-store wait time? How are you making sure that you're meeting the customer? While one DSP might be able to serve you within 30 minutes, the other might drive up to 45 miles to give you that offering. And so being able to leverage and really layer in different DSPs to meet your customer is important, from a diversification standpoint. And the other point I'll hit on is, we're seeing a lot of consolidation amongst delivery partners in the market. So,
Okay.
for example, we had, unfortunately, a DSP or a delivery partner shut down overnight. And because our retailers, a handful of our retailers had other backup plans, we were able to flip the switch and not impact the customer at all. So making
Hmm.
sure you have those contingency plans, but then also that diversification to meet the customer is really important in order to not disrupt, that customer buying behavior, that loyalty that you've really worked so hard to generate.
Yeah, and it's not even just that instance where that happens. I mean, we're hearing more and more about cybersecurity
Right.
and, threats to systems, especially supply chain systems. If one of your delivery providers goes down, what is that contingency plan? What are you going to do so you have uninterrupted service? Because if you think about what needs to happen when that happens, I mean, I know the supply chain professionals in the audience are like, oh, there's a whole to-do list, right? Because
Exactly.
you have to go through all the orders that are going to be impacted. You have to reach out to each one of them and make sure that they know what's happening and, what you're doing to fix it and when they're going to get it. And that kind of snowballs because then there's follow-ups and follow-ups and follow-ups until it gets delivered, right?
Exactly.
So and there's a lot of different reasons why that could happen.
Totally. And we see it even, when we're doing same day and shipping orchestration, and we have feature sets within our system that, when a carrier for whatever reason is unable to pick up the order, we have the ability from a diversification standpoint to
Mhm.
have that be a fallback to another. So it's really touchless from a solution standpoint to say, okay, I've set these different rules. Our self-healing, what we call it, technology allows that to go into effect. So you're not, as you were saying, playing that telephone game of I have to communicate to this person and this person. The system and the technology works to really mitigate those issues.
Yeah, or even to have to find a new delivery provider that has the same values and has what you need. I mean, I was in logistics for a very long time and we didn't have this kind of technology and it just, blows my mind how long I would have had to take on the phone and
Exactly.
research and emails and all sorts of stuff just to find somebody who could take over. But we've talked about because you're not just diversifying service providers, you're also diversifying delivery options. And we've talked a little bit about this already: same day, curbside, lockers, a host of different options that really didn't exist a few years ago. Why is it like, what does it mean for your client and for that end customer experience, maybe even for the industry, to have access easily and simply to a whole wide range of those solutions at their fingertips?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge for the industry. It's huge for the end customer. It's huge for the retailer. When I think about the tech stack and you think about tech resources, they're a dime a
Oh,
dozen.
yes.
Really
Mhm.
seeing that as a opportunity to differentiate yourself and make sure that loyalty inside your four walls from the technology center is really comfortable and confident. No one likes that knee-jerk reaction of I have to go here, I have to go there. So giving that consistency and that simplicity to your tech teams is awesome. And it filters down to your customer and those in-store individuals and making sure that we have that control, we have that loyalty, not just with our HQ employees, but also with our customers, because we always know what to expect. And when something does go wrong, because heaven forbid it does,
Mhm.
we then have the ability to there's not a hiccup. And even as the end customer is not feeling it. So when you think about what that means to the industry, it's really coming together to simplify the omni-channel to say, we're all in this together. We want to work with the delivery partners. We want to work with the shipping carriers. We want to make sure the communication is very clean and concise and proactive, because at the end of the day, the more the customer is buying and the more opportunities they have to interact with the brand, we all win together. So it's kind of
Mhm.
all ships rise if we can be able to communicate really, really well across all platforms.
Something a true supply chain professional would say, all ships rise. But I want
Exactly.
to also say, like, think about the plethora of data that
Right.
comes with offering all those solutions.
That's right.
You can really get a better understanding of that particular customer and even maybe customize it so that that option comes up first for them or different things like that that you can do down the road to really personalize the experience because that's what consumers want. And so you're
Right.
really able to understand that particular person and what they want from you as a retailer in a variety of different ways. It can also help with, where do we want a warehouse? Where do we want to
Yeah.
put product? Right? Depending on where they are and how they want it delivered. So I just, that there's a lot to say about that. But let's talk about sustainability. Now, ESG goals obviously are high on the priority list for a lot of retailers. Consumers are holding retailers to task, but it is a balancing act. We want to service clients with a host of options, but how do we fulfill those varying demands and expectations while still trying to work towards ESG goals? So, how are you helping clients to manage that?
Yeah. So as we think about the true bread and butter of our solution, it's going to be at the orchestration level, down to the store level, down to the package level, down to the SKU level. And what we can and have the ability to do is leverage different delivery partners that might have a smaller carbon footprint, that are willing to take it within different confines to make sure we're putting all of the packages in one box rather than individual boxes. And so based off of those orchestration rules, we can then allow which provider we want to make that order or have that order delivered. And you hit on the personalization. We know some customers, while right, wrong, or indifferent, are more in tune to this. And you might have that information from a
Mhm.
loyalty standpoint. When you're placing that order, it's important we get that data to be able to say, okay, based off of our orchestration, we want this to go with this delivery partner because they are going to check that box for the customer, and it's really going to make them more of a sticky customer. And then on the flip side, with our returns product, how do we make sure from a consolidation center, we're making the limitless number of packages, or the same amount of packages go within one box to reduce that carbon footprint. So really leveraging that orchestration, whether it's at delivery or on the returns aspect, to get those products back to where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's top of mind for everybody. Consumers might choose that delivery option based on how they feel about sustainability and what they feel is going to reduce even their carbon footprint. I mean, we're seeing options all the time,
Right.
right? Do we want to offset? Do we want to reduce the carbon footprint? Here are your options to be able to do that. And people are getting used to seeing that. So, this is one of my favorite parts of the conversation. Can you share a case study with us detailing exactly how you've helped a client? Like, what was the challenge that they came to you with? Which solution did they utilize? And what was the ROI and benefit of working with you?
So we, as I mentioned, we have 5 different products here at Delivery Solutions. So you have your delivery capability, you have your curbside offering, you have post-purchase, you have returns, and then you have your fleet solution. And when you think about that, all those 5 products can have kind of a spider web to multiple providers. So in totality, as I mentioned, this retailer had over 9 different integrations.
Whoo,
Um, when you
that's a
think about
lot.
that is a lot. When you think about annualizing that out, typically you see about a 25,000 integration fee per provider on top of $150,000 from a maintenance. So in total, that was roughly about 1.5 million to maintain all of these integrations. And so we had a retailer come to us and say, we've got to simplify. We need more delivery partners, but we can't continue this kind of monotony of integrate another one to make sure we're meeting that customer demand. That diversification was super important. And so we worked with a retailer in order to do that, to take them. They had 3 different delivery specific delivery partners, and they wanted to simplify their tech stack. So they went from 3 to 7 by way of one direct integration with Delivery Solutions. They saw
Wow.
roughly a 35% increase in order volume year over year, and they kept that consistent on-time percentage to deliver the best-in-class experience, not just for their customer, but for their in-store teams. It wasn't, who's showing up now? How do I communicate? How do I make sure my in-store wait time is really small? We really wanted to make sure that the store teams, the HQ individuals, the customers felt the difference, and being able to leverage all of that within the platform from an
Mhm.
analytics standpoint allowed them to measure day over day, week over week. And not just that, it allowed them to really plan out their labor to say, okay, based off of buying habits, I know when to schedule this type of labor in our curbside offering to make sure deliveries are picked and packed and ready to go. So it didn't just impact that technology sector of the business. It was kind of in totality, but it really started with technology throwing up their hands saying, we can't do another integration. We need some help. And we saw the trickle down effect that we were able to bring.
Yeah, they don't have time, energy to be able to do
Exactly,
all of this. But
exactly.
you brought up a really great point around ROI. It's not always just the savings. So they did save on a technology standpoint because they've
Right,
reduced the amount of work that their technology teams had to do, the
right,
amount they were spending on maintenance and
right,
just integrate, like that is crazy numbers to me. But their revenue went up 35%. Like that's a
right,
really, really big deal. I don't want to let that one slide. And then
right,
internally the team was happy.
Right.
That you
Exactly.
you made their job easier and they
Ex-
were able to do other things,
Right.
which I really think when we talk about ROI, those are key points. It's not just about the amount of money that we're going to spend that you can see right off the bat. It's
Exactly.
about some of those other things that come into play. But I do want to talk about the technology, right? Because it's still one of the most important topics in the industry. Integration, interoperability are some of the biggest talking points within it. And you say that your platform will be the last omni-channel integration clients will ever have to do. And that's a game changer. Can you
That is
talk to us about the tech? Maybe talk to us about the onboarding because, some people listening to this are going to be like, there's those maintenance costs still potentially.
Yep.
I don't know. There's onboarding. I need to find out if my tech team even has time for this. Like so many different questions about working with the new technology provider. So, can you answer all of that for me?
Absolutely. One of the things we pride ourselves on is it's an honor to work with these retailers, and we truly feel that we are an extension of their brand. And that only starts at, essentially that sales process and that sales handoff. We have a fabulous implementation team that is a part of that sales process to really scope what integrations look like, to make sure we understand what does your OMS look like? What does your TMS look like? What do these solutions look like? So that we can give you a realistic onboarding plan, because no one likes to walk in and say, oh, we can onboard you in 2 weeks. And then you get into the technology and you're like, that really doesn't work. And so
No.
in working with our implementation team, we have a really deep dive in the technical aspects. We understand who the key decision makers are. What are their goals? How are they measured within their teams? And how do we make sure we're hitting on those? And really,
Mhm.
as we walk through the product, we understand what goals we're trying to solve. We then map out what our implementation looks like. So I don't want to give you kind of oh, we launch typically in 90 days. It's going to be dependent on what the retailer's tech stack looks like and what complex problem we're looking to solve. And,
Mhm.
throughout that process, we have an amazing CRM team and support team that's typically answering support tickets for, any questions, whether it's an analytics questions or how do I set up a new orchestration rule, in sub 10 minutes. So from a CSAT standpoint and NPS, our teams are phenomenal in how we really put the customer first. But again, it goes back to being an extension of their brand. We're only as good as their front end solution and how their customers interact. And so as we always work through joint business plans. We always work through QBRs, because a lot of our great ideas come from our partners to say, hey, have you ever thought about doing this?
Mhm.
So our technology team and our product teams do a phenomenal job of understanding, what's going on in the industry, and how do we differentiate ourselves, but how do we do it simply? Because if we make it more complex, we've lost our mission and we've lost what we're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Um,
sure there's also like an element of untangling what's already there
yep,
so that you
exactly.
can come in and really streamline everything. And so that's got to be part of that process as well. And that will determine how long it's going to take too, I would assume.
Correct. Yep. That tangly web can be difficult.
All right. So let's talk about data, AI, and machine learning. How does all of that tie into it? Because, people, they want to use AI. They're not sure where it should fit in. They want to use data, but they don't know how to analyze it effectively. How are
Yep.
you solving those issues for clients, giving them the information they need? And what is the impact of that?
So as we think about setting up orchestration and we set up our rules for our retailers, we hit on it a little bit when you play that telephone game. When something doesn't
Yeah.
go as planned, what do you do next? And so through our data and analytics and even our setup of our carriers, we have the ability to proactively self-heal orders. So how do we make sure that retailers, customers never feel the impact when a delivery partner might say, hey, yes, I can pick that order up at 11 o'clock, but in fact, they don't arrive till 2 o'clock. We have the ability to proactively clone that order, make sure that goes to a different delivery provider where the store teams and the HQ teams have no insights at that change happened and the
Huh.
customer promise is still met. So leveraging that data, leveraging that technology allows us to then make sure that the customer experience is very crisp and clean. And then we use that information to help inform the retailers as to how the performance looks. So you have your actuals of how the customer performed, but then you also have your contracted performance between your delivery partners. We will always be a provider that is not going to push one delivery partner over another. We're really just a tool to help make sure that retailers make the best choice for themselves. And so leveraging that data clear and crisp in a very digestible way is really, really important so that they can make the best business decisions for themselves.
Well, and do we really need to know everything that's going on? If some of it can be done in the back end and we can just
Exactly.
know later, as long as it gets delivered on time to the client, I
Right.
mean, we might have to give up a little bit of control on that, right?
Exactly, exactly. At the end of the day, did the customer promise, was that hit? Yes or no?
Right.
And that's it. If we need to dig into more from a contracting standpoint or expectations or setting those SLAs, we can do that. But from a high level, it's been really important.
I like that. It might be a bit of an adjustment, but I like that a lot. So, what does the future hold? What can we expect from delivery solutions, but also what can we expect from the industry? I mean, omni-channel e-commerce is growing rapidly. I mean, what are the trends we should be looking out for in 2024 and maybe even 2025?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about kind of that outbound transportation and making sure the goods get to the customers. And we know the big opportunity is returns and making sure
Yes.
that returns are getting back either quickly or in a cost-effective manner. And so you'll really see us continuing to double down on returns. While we have all those order details, when you send us same day or shipping orders or curbside orders, it's very easy for us to provide a streamlined retail branded experience that doesn't inhibit any of your customer communication today. So I think returns is big. Just coming back from Shop Talk, everyone was talking about returns and how do you do it well. So we'll continue to see that and double down and work with retailers to solve that solution. We also have a big opportunity as we think about the evolution of orchestrating on owned vehicles. So I know there's, fleet solutions, there's drones, there's lockers. So how do we continue to meet the customer, meaning the retailer where they are and how they want to offer that to their retail or to their customers? And so I think the opportunities are endless, but how are we going to differentiate ourselves and how are we going to continue to do what's really simple is leveraging that single API integration to unlock, essentially that web of what was there before in a very clean and concise way.
I love to hear that you're going to double down on returns. I recently had an experience with a large brand that most people know about where they shipped me the product didn't fit, so I submitted a return ticket right away. It took them 60 days to get back to me, where that
Wow.
product was sitting under my desk
Right.
waiting for that label
Right.
to be able to put it on the box and be able to send it back. And all I kept thinking every single day was how much money was sitting in my house for
Exactly.
that long. Because it's not just about the experience. Of course, it's the experience, but it's also about how much capital do you have out there in the market that you're not actually bringing back so that
Right.
you can make the revenue on it that you need to be able to make. So, just an example, and I think it's huge that you are focusing on returns. So,
Totally.
in today's competitive market, retailers face tough challenges if they want to stay afloat, from rising costs and ongoing disruptions to increasingly discerning customers. Those challenges are complex, interconnected, and expensive. And omni-channel supply chains hold huge potential for cutting costs, enhancing customer experience, and delivering a competitive advantage. However, their success relies on a commitment to agility, data-driven decision making, and a customer-centric mindset. That's why you need a partner like Delivery Solutions. They understand the opportunities and challenges, and their omni channel orchestration technology can help you integrate all aspects of your supply chain and offer a unified retail experience to your customers. If you want to find out more, you can check them out at deliverysolutions.co. And did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, according to a recent study, what percentage of retailers retained customers utilizing a robust omnichannel approach? Well, retailers with a robust omnichannel approach retained over 89% of their customers compared to those that are weak in this area. And omnichannel customer engagement companies will see a 9.5% rise in annual revenue as opposed to just 3.4% for companies without this strategy. So even more proof that omnichannel needs to be high on your priority list for 2024. Amy, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And thanks so much to your team for making this happen.
Of course, thanks for having me. It's been great chatting with you.